Hello, friends. How are you today? Well, it's so great to be here with you. And when I printed my last video, which I called the 3 Insights, I realized I had left out the 3rd insight. You wouldn't believe how long it took me to make that last video. I was trying to get this 3rd part just right, and since it didn't come out how I wanted it to, I took it out. But I kept the title. So let's talk about the 3rd insight. And what we're talking about is this Schumann resonance chart where the data stopped from September 6th. And I have been digging into the concepts here, and there's so much to talk about that it's almost, in some ways, it's kind of a cool thing that we can take the time to do this and not feel like, oh, I've got to talk about the next chart, because, and I somewhat wonder if this is why the data is stopped. That's my time. That's my timer. I have an issue with time because possibly because I'm in the now moment or because I'm spacey, but when I have something to do, I have to set a timer for myself somewhat in a distance ahead of time so I can prepare. Well, yeah, so that actually kind of relates. I wondered if I've wondered if the data has stopped because this is such an important moment, and that there's so much that this energy says, and that it was so unusual to have a 0 amplitude. And I'll tell you what, and that's what was the cause of this blue energy here. And I'll tell you what, okay, over the years of looking at the chart, I caught the 0 amplitude one other time in 2019. It was right here on November 26, 2019. And I can't prove this for sure, okay? See right here where this blue is once again, and even it was this, it looks black, but you can see some of the energy lines in here. This whole area here is 0 amplitude. And my impression was that that when 0 amplitude happened, that it was being hidden on the chart, because what happened was I would have to catch the data in the middle of my night, and so I caught this, and then this may have been the ones where it was gone in the morning. Okay, so now they're just really on it, and I haven't noticed it happening like that anymore, where data prints and then they go whoop, and then it's gone. I really don't know what goes on with that. Here's the 3rd insight. Okay, there's a similar mechanism with this 0 amplitude in 2019 that there is today, and with a slight difference. Now, the first thing is there's this little sort of demonic entity here, and someone said that it looked like an emblem on barking. Yes, the dog chimes in. They always bark at this kind of energy. Anyway, the emblem of the monarch of a country that's in the news a lot lately. But I don't know, but that's what that person commented. Apparently they looked it up. So thanks for that comment. But, to me it looked like a gargoyle. That's what I called it when I named the chart way back then. It looked like some kind of little gargoyle just perching there. And you see how it was mostly in our unconscious. See that? Because this is about 4 hertz, this line here, this colored green with red. And then this thick green is about 8 hertz or 7.86, the natural frequency of the planet. So you see only a little bit of the darkness which was in our consciousness. It was really, this is 2019, really look. Okay, this was in our subconsciousness, so coming into view, and we were having some light there. This looks like a little animal or a dog, doesn't it? That's interesting. And this looks like a creepy face, maybe a king face even. I don't even know. It looks more male to me. or a lion face. Oh, it could be a lion face. Oh my gosh, it really looks like a lion face now. The more that I look at it, let me make it a little bigger here for you. Wow, yeah, I see that. And then you could say this is a red and white crown, but red dripping in blood up there, possibly. Okay, so basically, there was a gargoyle, and it was almost like this was the forces of darkness attempting to scare us, okay, before we were about to get into this state. And the scaring us was mostly in the unconscious. These things weren't in our point of view, but they were still affecting us. What we have is that energy of something big and strange. It's taking up almost the whole chart. And it comes after we have the experience. And it's like these repeating vertical waves created an energy that protected us, allowed us to achieve the harmonic of zero amplitude together, like I talked about in my last video. And then when we came out of that, boom, scare the crap out of these guys. That's the humans. That's what this looks like. And I think there's two things going on here. I think that, if there are energies that cannot be in a fifth dimensional or 0 point or prayerful, connected with God state of energy, okay, because a fifth dimensional state of energy to me is an energy of wholeness and integration where we are fully connected with the divinity that created us. So the Christ light, which is the light of the soul, which is alive in each of us, right? That we are in relationship with that. And this relationship protects us. And so nothing can prevent us from achieving this state, but other things outside ourselves can attempt to scare us out of it, or to pull us back into their density. And this is something that I saw very often when I was doing a lot of land work. And over the years, I've talked to people from I'm getting emotional. I've talked to people from different parts of the country who called me for sessions. And so I like to do it with another person because Jesus said, when two or more of you are present and call my name, I will be there, right? It's something like that. And so I think it's cool to do it with another human being. When I'm doing these things alone, I just call in the higher selves of other human beings. I call in, the consciousness. I don't call it to myself, but I just call to it and say, participate with me in alignment with the highest good, if you choose, because I know there's a lot of people doing prayer work and light work, and I can participate. We can participate together even if we can't see each other, and that's how I do the two or more. If I'm doing that kind of work on my own. But a lot of times I do it with other people. So I've had people from around the country call me, and there have been instances where I've worked with someone in another part of the country, and we're looking at land that these people, they're placed all over, probably the world, and they consider themselves keepers, of the land, watchers of the energy, essentially. And so we do the work together, and I bring my skills and they bring their skills. And what I've noticed is that there are parts of the land, parts of the environment and the human environment, but where the state of energy of the environment of the land, of the place, is significantly lowered on purpose through different mechanisms. Sometimes there's God bless you. Sometimes there's a technology. They say that sneezing is body confirmation. Spirit through the body giving confirmation. Anyway, so through various mechanisms, I don't need to go into all of those, but there are mechanisms where the energy is purposefully lowered. And what I saw doing this is that there are beings, and a lot of these are, they're humans that have allowed entities into the field and then consciously or unconsciously work with these forces. But the forces can't really exist within the human being if that human being is connected with God or connected with their own soul, Where, oh, that poor dog. Did you hear that dog crying? That's so wild. To see the pain of what that's like. That dog was just expressing, crying. That's so, okay. I guess we're all doing this together. The dogs and me and the birds. I don't know if you noticed, but the crows didn't show up today. Today it was these little songbirds. Sometimes the crows show up and they want to talk, like before. Oh my God! Did you hear that? They just cawed. They gave the entrance to, I believe it was my last video. But this morning it was songbirds, but they just cawed. I guess they wanted to participate. Oh my gosh, isn't it amazing? Life is a blessing and a miracle. Okay, let me keep going. All right, so what I wanted to say is that so that these depressed energies in the energetic state, if you had a technology you could measure them, it would be like they would show at a lower dimensional state, however that's expressed in measurement, because I don't know if we have tools that can measure, if elite science has tools that can measure lower states of being, but I'm guessing that they do. But anyway, the reason that I say that is because many light workers in the last 10 years have reported doing energy work, and even while they're doing energy work, noting certain disturbances that seem to indicate that the work was noticed. And what I think is that it's a measurement process. Like there's a fluctuation in a field that's being measured that was being affected by those light workers. And I think there's a lot less of that now because so much of that work has been done, but it's probably ongoing since, who knows? I don't even know. Okay, that's not my area at this point. So okay, so here's this large energy. So I think what it is that when we achieve this, there's now significant, huge, literally extending through every level of our brain waves at key levels, right? High beta, mid beta, low beta, alpha, okay, all the waking states. They didn't quite get into gamma, haha. They can't get up to spiritual energy. But to distract us, to try to pull us back down into density and to scare us. Those three things in particular. And so what I suggest here is to develop a practice of inward focus. God is our remedy, the connection with God, with the Christ light within us, right? Because Jesus said this, speaking of his works, he said, this you will do and more. And maybe he even meant his state of being. Like what did he do? He embodied the living God force, which I believe is represented by the soul of each human. And so he embodied that 100% perfectly. And so I believe that is our rock in these times where something big and scary is trying to get our attention. And as I explained at the end, the last about 12 minutes of my story in the Big Blue video, these forces can only attempt to gain our attention, but they cannot make you act. Only you can do that. They can make suggestions, though. And there's another thing here that I didn't mention this one, that there's a demoralizing process. And this has become very well known now in the awakening circles. But I was listening to Joyce Myers this morning, and she said this: there's one person the devil cannot defeat, and that's somebody who refuses to give up. And so please remember that, as we go into these times. And the other thing she talked about is so amazing was the providence of God and the grace that the divine has for us, the protection that the divine has when we align. And the traditional ways of speaking about this, both in Christian speech and in the Lightworker community is to submit to God's will. Now, I offer a way of joyfully reflecting on this, which is I make a conscious choice to align my will with divine will for me. And I do it consciously, happily, with gratitude, because the amazing feelings that I get when I align and then act in the living physical world in alignment with what I perceive to be, and it's a personal discernment process here, but what I perceive to be God's will for me based on all the study I've done and the inner prayer work and meditation and connection, and then bring that into the world. And I can do it personally and quietly just in my physical life, okay? But I can do it, like, for example, talking on this video and sharing these things for you. This is something I feel guided to do, and that's why I keep doing it, you know? I keep doing it until, like, you know, until I'm not guided to do it. But that's my guidance, to share in this way. And it's funny because I always thought I would write a book. And at one point I was talking to someone, because I've consulted many, many times over the years over what is going on with me and this thought about writing the book. And someone said to me, you know, it might be that you do this book in a different way than you want it. And that's the thing, when we have that inner guidance, right? When we're in this connected place, sometimes things turn out differently than we expect. And as a living human, I was very attached to this idea of having the book. Okay, it had to be the book. And this is the difference between making human-only choices and choices in alignment with God's will for us. So when I followed my divine guidance, I wasn't writing the book, I was doing videos. And so it's been a process of being in acceptance. But this is how we meet these scary things, these distractions, these offers to do it a different way out of what you perceive as your alignment. There's the crow. You know, the forces of darkness can come in and in and in. And it's interesting. I want to show you one more thing about, I'll call this the Dark Queen. I want to show you an energy structure in the human energy field. Okay, so here we are. Now here's the I'm going to call this the Dark Queen right now. So here's the face. Do you see how there's eyes, nose, and here's literally an open mouth facing to the left. So facing to the shadow side, facing to the past. And you even see this crown up here, you know, and her stately long neck. My friend Coco and I were talking about this, and she was talking about how she was perceiving this. I thought that was great. Now, what I wanted to show you is that this structure here in energy, you see how she's kind of caught between these two lines. And it's almost like she's coming through this crack, this space. I want to show you something energetically. We'll get to her in a minute. Okay, so this is what I want to show you. Okay, and this is my third attempt at trying to explain this. So hopefully I'll be able to print this video today, including this part, this aspect. So I had a person come to me, and this is one person. This is one example. When the person came to me, I was at a public event, and they sat with me for maybe only about 20 minutes. We did a lot of clearing work in the field because this person had been subjected to a lot of trauma. Okay, I don't know how all that came about, and it wasn't my business to know. I was just guided to do the clearing work, and that's what she asked for. But once the clearing work was done, and that was quite something, okay, that she had a lot of dark energy that was tormenting her. But then the structure of her field became clear, right? Because now she requested the clearing. See, clearing energy only works when the person chooses to do that themselves, chooses that that's what they want. Otherwise, they'll just invite it back in. You know, if a healer or a psychic or whatever clears energy without, anyway, I don't want to get into that because I want to focus on the story. So I use this picture here to illustrate the human energy field. And what I want to show you here, the structure of the field. Okay, so here's the person, and there's a physical body, right, in the field. And then I use the sun for the heart connection. But we're going to focus on energy, so I just leave the field like this right now. But I want to show you what the structure of this person's field was like when we cleared energy. And I learned a lot, and I've learned a lot actually in recent days thinking about this, about what happened. And because this is how the divine works, I pray that this person also, got benefit out of the experience. After the energy clearing, I couldn't really help the person. But we talked through many things, which is private. But I want to show you the field structure because this is something that I think is... I've seen some of this before, but never quite in this state, in this presentation. Once the field was cleared, what I was shown and told by my guides is that the person was schizophrenic. And they told me this several times with sort of a warning tone in it. And I think that was so that I would really step back and take the guidance from the person of what they wanted. Now, I'm not able to make diagnoses, so I don't have that kind of medical training. So I'm only talking about energy here, and I saw this in one person that came to me like this. So this is a one-off example. I'm not talking about applying this to a broader group, but in general, this is a possibility of what can happen with people. Now, I've talked about in other videos that the energy field of the human being, entities can enter the field. In this video of mine, Healing Relationships, Energetic Parasites, Healing Opportunities, I go through and talk about what are the causes of having entities in the field, what they can look like, the different categories, and what this is about. And this is in my Human Resonance playlist. And then I give examples here of entities and how they attempt to draw energy from us and get us into denser environments by causing us, to fight with each other, to fear each other, and that sort of thing. And this can be extremely damaging for relationships because we don't understand the other forces, the non-physical forces at work. And I feel that this is extremely important for us to understand. It's key to claiming our authority as living human beings, first over our bodies and energy fields, and then over our environment, our communities, our culture, because there are these hidden influences and we just don't understand that they're there. But we're coming to understand that these things have been working on us. So what I saw in the field was that there was an interdimensional sort of a crack in the field. I don't know how that occurred. I just saw it in the field. What was presenting was in the person's field was a huge being, probably not human or human friendly, but it was significantly influencing the person in front of me. And I said, there's a huge entity in your field. Are you interested in addressing this? Every time I talked about it, the person ignored me. Then the other thing that was in their field was their light, the light of their own soul. And it was a woman, and it was her as a living soul, and she was so beautiful. And she was surrounded by angels. And so, and she was in a box, okay, in her field. It was actually a gilded cage of gold in her own field. And it was like a very clear choice, this or this. When I talked about, the soul being in a box, I just couldn't get through. right? I said what I saw, and then it's a person's free will, what they're going to choose, okay? So, but I wanted to explain this to you because this is a severe state in the energy field where the human being, the literal human being, for whatever reason, has been subjected to something that has caused this in the field, where the entity is able to run the field and the person because this person is consciously choosing to allow it or unconsciously choosing to allow it. And they're quite enthralled. You see, what happens is the dark entity will present all this beautiful, all this frilliness, oh, look at this, look what I can do for you, look what we can do together, look what I can show you. And what will happen is the demonic force, and a person doesn't have to be schizophrenic to do this. Many people engage in this who look like regular human beings. The force will say it will protect them. The force will say it's going to give them secrets. It will, tell them the secrets of this or that, whatever it happens to be. So what happens here, the antidote to this situation is the recovery of the soul. And that can happen by making a choice. And it very well may be because I'm about soul connection, soul activation, and bringing that into the human energy field. It very well may be that person met with me so they could know. They could have someone see their own soul describe what it was like to them, and then that was a step in their process of recovery. I don't know. I would just pray to be a blessing in some way, but we don't know how we affect other people is the fact of the matter. So when I saw in the Schumann resonance this image here, it totally reminded me of the person that visited me. An entity being present through a crack in the dimensional field. And the reason that this is different than this here, these structures that I talk about in this Healing Relationships, Energetic Parasites, Healing Opportunities video, these are all normally present on the earth, okay? In our fourth dimensional reality, the astral, that is close to the human. Essentially, in some ways we help create these things through living a human life unconsciously. And so what happens is that there are interdimensional beings and energies that can attempt to open cracks in our reality. And these are things, in my view, that a lot of prayer warriors and energy workers have been sealing up the cracks and sending these entities back to God, back to the Most High, the creator of the universe, the source of all that is. And especially, these kinds of things, okay? On this side of the chart, these are the energetic parasites that attempt to offer us different experiences, right, than the human connect with God, live in alignment with your soul. Okay, so the question is, who speaks through you besides your own self, right? If a person is being influenced by an entity, that entity will attempt to prevent them from getting to zero amplitude. That's what's going on here. And it can't be forced, right? And if a person has had traumatic experiences, okay, especially when very small as a child, they can recover. The way that they recover is they make a conscious choice, a conscious request of the soul, or maybe it's unconscious through them. Sometimes these things bubble up from our unconscious. They're what we really desire. And when that happens, the soul will start to work as a solvent and start to remove some of the barriers to these things so that we can recover our life as God intended it, as it was meant to be, right? A human being with a living soul, one-to-one. It feels so amazing when you live this way. I mean, it's incredible. The physical feeling of your body elevates. And, I've had moments where I'm feeling this, where it's so alive in me. It's the gratitude that I feel to God, to the divine, is to my own soul, is so overwhelming and incredible and awe-inspiring when you achieve this in the field. And this is the challenge, right? This is the opportunity of these times. It's a stark and clear choice between something human and something not human. That is our planet going to be dominated by humans who are human, or humans who are something else. This is the clear, stark choice here. The way to recovery for someone who has these issues is to find that tiny spot within where your soul connection exists, because it does exist for you. If you're alive, it exists. It's somewhere. And it's in you. And it's still there for you. And you connect with that little tiny few pixels. And what you do is, as you choose to connect, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, until it becomes, once again, the light that you are. As you expand the soul light, what is not yours meaning your soul, your soul living in your body as you as you are meant to be, all that has to leave, because it cannot tolerate the incredible levels of light that the soul brings to the body. This fades to darkness. And how do these separations from ourselves happen? Regardless of what has happened in our physical lifetimes, okay? Facing the darkness within and healing it, bringing ourselves back into a relationship with the dark queen or the dark king inside. The male parts of ourselves that have been abandoned, that have been traumatized. The female parts of ourselves that have been denied. And I'm going to talk about the female part right now, because that's what I saw and because that's what I know. And because I think that's what's causing so much trouble in the world, in our society right now. The abandoned female, the dark queen, the dark goddesses, the Lilith, the Eris, and the goddesses that have not been recognized, the feminine aspects, Ceres, the mother, okay, the nurturer, Juno, the clan mother. These are Vesta, the priestess who guards the sacred light in the temple, who fires the sacred light in the home at the hearth. These are the feminine parts of ourselves that have been denied over decades in our culture, until now they're being blotted out entirely. Oh, it doesn't even exist anymore. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And it's the denial of these things that causes the trauma and pain and confusion. And part of the reason that we deny these things, these energies within ourselves, is because they are in such despair. They are in such trauma. They are in rage. They are in depression. These feminine aspects in particular that I'm talking about now. And all the goddesses I just mentioned are asteroids in the astrology zone. And when I do charts, I always add them in. Because if you look at our pantheon of astrological analysis, all the planets but Venus are male, and the moon, really, are male. And the feminine has been denied from our astrology as well. And so I always put in the feminine goddesses, because I feel that to look at the chart truly for any human being, a male or a female, it's important to look at the wholeness of the energies of who you are. And I've been thinking about it recently. I'm going to start adding in the gods as well. I'm going to add in Odin and, Vulcan and the rest of them, because these are mythological characters in our civilization, in our culture. But the fact of the matter is that this is who we are. They're mythological figures because they represent aspects of humanity that are critical to know, that are critically important, so that we can know who we are. And I think part of the reason that so many people are in confusion about themselves is we are raising blank generations. And we're raising people to express who they are from within without giving them the tools and the understanding and the cultural context and references, without explaining the stories. Why do we insist that people have to start at zero and not tell the stories of who we are? The stories that have endured throughout our cultural experience. And this is where you get the anger of Lilith, the rage at her subjugation and disrespect. This is where you get the strife of Eris, the disobedience to authoritarian principles, the disobedience to structure. She will come in and just toss in something that will set everything fighting against each other. And in doing so, life, the life force that is divinely aligned, is what survives in alignment with divine will and the highest good. Vesta, the priestess at the temple in the sacred hearth. How many women even have the time to create that sacredness at home now, right? And for their families. But that sacredness that women create in the home, that nurtures the family, that nurtures the child. It gives the love to a growing child. It gives the love to, her man, to support him, caring for her and providing for her and the child. These things are critical. They're not unimportant. They're not to be disrespected, or chaos ensues, right? Ceres, the mother, Ceres, who went down into the depths of the underworld to claim back her children, her child, Persephone. She went back. She faced the darkness to claim back what was hers. And who took her down there? Hecate escorted her to the entrance. The goddess who understands the darkness in our world and how to protect from it. You can imagine Hecate advising Ceres, Demeter, as she approaches the gateway to the underworld. How do you protect yourself? How do you face this? How do you come out whole? And yet we deny these goddesses and call them, demonic, because that is what the forces of darkness want us to think. Because if we had and reclaimed these strong qualities of feminine nature, we would be able to protect ourselves against that which is not in alignment with our highest good, and that wishes to separate us from the divinity that we are. And so the lack of protection that we leave ourselves in results in terrible, terrible circumstances. A terrible circumstance happened to a woman. It was all over the national news in California recently. And it just makes you say, why didn't this woman protect herself when she knew, what she was in relationship with? And the denial of evil and the ability to call it by name and to know what it is, that comes through us through the tool sets of the dark goddesses, right? And without those tool sets, we leave behind our protection, because Lilith teaches us to be independent. Eris teaches us to call by name what is not in alignment with the highest good. Vesta teaches us to light the sacred fire in the home, which can only come if the sacred fire is lit in our hearts first, right? The flame of divinity. Ceres, Demeter, teaches us to love and nurture our children and protect them at all costs, and to face the darkness and to have the courage to do so, so that our children survive and thrive, and can be provided with the opportunity to live a good life. Juno, the clan mother, Juno, the clan mother. And we're told how she sets people against each other, and certainly she may have done these. She did these things. Let's not deny that, for her own purposes. But Juno, the clan mother, determines who do we elevate, who is the best match to produce offspring that will carry on human culture in its highest form for the next generations. Juno makes these decisions. And so I just say this, that's the other thing that this queen can represent: the disconnected parts of ourselves, the parts of ourselves that are trapped in a mind control that we're not even aware of, that we are not allowed to access these because these are evil, right? These parts of ourselves. No, they are what protects us. They are our strength, and they're our strength as women, okay? And it's about time that we recover them, but we can only do that when we make the conscious choice to recover those soul aspects that we have locked in the gilded cage. Because if this woman unlocks those soul aspects, she can kick this out of her field in a moment. And that is why we are told that they are not to be engaged with. Right? And these aspects benefit men as well as women, because we are a team. We are two halves of the whole of humanity. We are what we are, and we can support each other in working through the confusion, in working through the dysphoria, in working through the retrieving the lost part of ourselves. And we do that when we approach ourselves and each other with love, the willingness to face the darkness through courage, the action of bringing the light of transparency first to ourselves and healing the disconnected parts within. And when we do this, we become strong. And there's something else that I want to tell you, because my girlfriend and I were talking yesterday. She had an amazing experience. I'd love to share these kinds of things with you, but it was just so beautiful. I'm going to keep that in the silence, but I want to share what my experience was. She said these words to me, right? And it was a message for someone else, but I think it was also a message for me, and that's why I'm sharing it here. She said that, she was talking about how you don't have to feel bad anymore. And she was talking about someone who had experienced something traumatic in the past. And as she was talking about this and the fact that you don't have to feel bad anymore, I started crying, and emotions were overwhelmingly welling up inside of me. Because, when we have engaged with these forces in other lifetimes, when we have, even when we have acted in the lifetime and thought we were doing the right thing, or we were so traumatized that we could barely act, and I want to talk about when we think that we're doing the right thing, but disasters occur and people are hurt, which a lot of people have made those decisions. There are going to be a lot of people that are going to have to face the fact that they recommended something to a family member, and the family member acted and possibly now has died, okay, or is suffering harm. And you didn't mean it, okay? You thought you were coming from a place of goodness, okay? And the ability to forgive yourself is key here to retaining and recovering soul connection, and to know that God forgives you, has already forgiven you, okay? The Christ light is already in you, waiting for you to recover yourself and to know that you're worthy, even though you made these mistakes and errors, to reconnect. And when I listened to Joyce Myers this morning, she was talking about the providence of God. And I looked up the word providence, and it means foresee and attend to. So the divine attends to us and can foresee our circumstances. And this woman that told me these stories yesterday that benefited me so greatly, I can only imagine that the divine in her had the providence to suggest she share them with me. And of course, we talked about it, and I encouraged her and she encouraged me. But the thing is that the divine encouraged her because it could foresee. It wanted to attend to what I was facing, okay, and what I'm facing in my life. Do I have the willingness to move forward, knowing what the past was, right? Knowing certain things, right? And I explained in the story of Big Blue, right, where I remembered a past lifetime where I wasn't a good person. But there have been many past lifetimes that I've had, and some key ones where I thought I was doing the right thing, right? And because I had that sense of the divine presence, I had that sense of the soul in these lifetimes. I had that sense of wanting to do the right thing, but not having enough knowledge, like not having the knowing, just like people today have made decisions thinking they were told information that was true, and then it wasn't correct, and they made life-altering decisions. So I have lived through this in other lifetimes, and the ability to forgive myself over these things is something I've worked on for probably 10 years at least now. And what I was told by my friend yesterday, this lovely person, you don't have to feel bad anymore. In fact, the divine wants you to feel joy, to feel good, to feel light, to feel happy, to take delight in this world. And this is what all of you are facing who have made these decisions. And now I can understand why it took 3 times to make this video. I'd say about 75% of what I'm feeling doesn't even relate to the current lifetime I'm living. It's something I have drugged through me, and through the eons, and it's time to let go. It's time to give it to God. And I'm just saying that if there's something like this in your life, I beseech you to consider doing it in this lifetime and not bringing it forward with you. Listen, this is the thing, and Joyce talked about this morning. She was talking about when we act in ignorance, that God has grace for us. She was talking about the example of Paul and that he acted with zeal without knowledge, right? And he persecuted Christians in his time before he became an apostle. And he was acting in zeal without knowledge, without understanding. He was believing that he was doing the right thing by persecuting people. And this is the same thing for all of you who persecuted others who did not make the same choices you did. Act with some compassion now for yourself first of how you behaved. Consider forgiving yourself, right? Saying I'm sorry is wonderful. It's wonderful for people to hear that if you want to do that. But the most important thing is the recovery of your soul. This is just my view. That's the most important thing. Because your ability to recover your soul connection and to forgive yourself affects future lifetimes. And it affects, in my view, the future of humanity. If you can forgive yourself and choose to live in joy anyway, to appreciate what you have, and if you're dealing with the fact that people you loved passed, bring them to mind in the happiness of the moments you spent with them, and let them be with you. Let them be beside you in your life now. In the joy that you had with them, let them help you recover. Because I'm telling you that I believe that they are looking down from heaven smiling. And they want to attend to you, that they love you and forgive you. They hold no ill will over what happened. And if you're dealing with someone who has been victimized or traumatized by these circumstances, the same. Bring to mind the joy. If you're dealing with someone who's been disabled, bring to mind in prayer, right? In a meditative state, in a prayerful state, bring to mind the times you spent with them when they were whole and healthy. Love on this aspect with them. So it's about time for me to go. And I just want to leave you with that to recover the self, we have to integrate the bad girl. We have to integrate the bad guy. We have to integrate the dirty queen, the queen that did bad things. That represents a part of who we are, not someone else, okay? Other people can manage their own energy. That's between them and God. I'm talking about the inner queen, the light that you are of divinity, that is the queen that you are, that you put in a box and said was bad. It's time to take her out of the box and love her and bring her back into the soul that you are, just the pure soul essence. The rest of it burns to dust. Let God take that from you, or just give the whole thing to God, whatever works for you. And the same thing with the inner king, if you're a man, the inner king, and that you've denigrated, that you've stepped on, that you haven't allowed to be strong within you because you were afraid of what he would do. Give those fears to God. Give the anger to God. Give what you did in the past to God, and integrate the best of that for you, the pure soul energy only. Let the rest burn to dust. Or give the whole thing to God. Depends where you're at and what's going on for you, But when you give it to God, you claim back those tool sets. You claim back the ability to act in male authority with divine guidance. And men can be strong in the physical world, and they're the ones that take the harsh actions when they need to be done. And if you're confused, okay, if you're simply confused about the entire thing inside, you can do it from a place of knowingness. First, call to mind an inner queen and work with her, and then call to mind an inner king. And then may I suggest you call to mind simply the light that you are without male or female attributes. And let it be okay that you can be a being of light with the male and female completely integrated, whole unto itself without needing to call what that is by name. Just let it be okay. And you can heal. You can heal yourself, working with the light that you are, the soul that you are, because we're always forgiven by the divine for what we've done in the world. It's us, though, then, that has the task of having the courage to face the inner darkness, the choices we've made, the actions that we've done, and the results in the living world, and to heal, to let it be okay and let it go. This is what heals the world. This is what heals ourselves, and this is our opportunity.